This is the battle of budget boost. You're watching Engine Masters presented by AMSOIL, and this time we're gonna have a look at the power and the aggravation involved with installing the most affordable implements of supercharging that you can buy in a kit. That is a Paxton centrifugal supercharger, that is a Weiand roots blower. We're gonna find out which one of these is better for you. Look, it's an actual Ford on Engine Masters. We actually love this little motor, and you might remember it if you're a fan of our Roadkill show. We put this engine in a 1968 Ford Ranchero and drove it all the way to Alaska from California. And it got shipped back, and on the ship out there on the ocean, this thing got so cruddy and horrible. But Steve Dulcich grabbed it from us. He put new rings and bearings in it and dressed it all up, looking all swanky and ready for its star appearance on Engine Masters. This in naturally aspirated trim makes 450 horsepower and 440 pound-feet of torque. This is a small block Ford configuration, the same as a 302, but it's 363 cubic inches because it has a bigger stroke, 3.4 inches, and an aftermarket block with a 4 1/8 inch bore. So that adds up to a 363. The whole bottom end is from Dart Machinery. They sell the whole short block under their SHP line. It's all forged stuff, pretty good deal. It also has Dart heads on it. They have a 195cc intake runner. This thing has 9.2 to 1 compression. The camshaft is a Comp Cam's nitrous grind. It's the NX 282 HR for hydraulic roller, -14, meaning it's on a 114-degree lobe separation angle, which in theory is going to be good for the boost that we're going to throw at it. This carburetor is a Holley 850 Ultra XP. We used it naturally aspirated. We're also gonna put it on top of the Weiand root supercharger. We're gonna try and use it with the blow-through setup on the Paxton centrifugal blower. Right now, let's hang this thing on the dyno and find out what it does under pressure. We're gonna lay the boost to it. The first blower that we're going to install is the Weiand 174 mini supercharger that acts like a belt-driven intake manifold. It is the roots blower portion of the Comparo. This is the first Ford we've done at Engine Masters.
I know.
What do you think?
And it was my build too.
I know.
But it was your engine.
So if it goes wrong, all the Ford guys will blame you. This is what's called a roots supercharger. The design where you have two rotors in here that spin together. It's actually a positive displacement compressor. This is 174 cubic inches. Every time it rotates all the way around, it shoves that much air into the engine. You can see how they roll around here and are sealed with Teflon. The whole reason any supercharger, including a turbo, makes more power with boost is because you're cramming more air into the engine, and when you have more air, you can burn more fuel, and with more fuel, you get more power. Plop the carburetor on, let's check it out. Prop the carburetor on in the right direction.
I don't have the...
People are always asking us, why aren't we using EFI? You know what a lot of it is we've got to crank these videos out really quickly, and this way we don't have to hook up a bunch of sensors or do any wiring or create a tune-up for anything. This is just simpler for initial fire up and running, and at wide open throttle, it tends to make kind of the same horsepower either way. And also, for this particular test, we're talking entry-level superchargers, and entry-level guys often don't have EFI. And this is rudimentary technology, let's face it.
As you can see, we don't have an ordinary engine here. We have pretty much a racing engine with supercharger. So that's gonna put extra demands on the oil. We talked to the experts at AMSOIL, and they've recommended their 1550, which seems like a very heavy grade of motor oil. But with the supercharger, puts a lot of load on the internal components, so you want that extra cushion and the extra protection. It also has the protection of zinc in the additive package and phosphorus and other ingredients that really protect the engine. And let's see if I can pour this as good as Freiberger. Whoa, and I'll quit before I make a mess.
If you're seeing some smoke out there in the room, that is just a little oil leak that we've got coming out of the flywheel bolts in the back, so don't worry about it. 5.6, 5.9 pounds of boost, but at peak power, yeah, that's about it. 5.5 pounds of boost, neighborhood of. Let's see what kind of power we made. With the Weiand blower at 5.5 pounds of boost, we made 473 pound-feet of torque and 522 horsepower. Here's the problem though, 520 horsepower is not a number you want to throw out when you have a blown small block.
But it's not a whole blower, it's only a half a blower.
Well, you know the solution is...
More boost.
Right.
Well, I did get a smaller pulley for it. We should probably do that and see what it does.
I'm ready to go.
What we're doing now is changing the drive ratio of the supercharger to spin it faster to make more boost. What you want to do is measure the diameter of your driven pulley and the diameter of your drive pulley, and you divide the driven pulley by the drive pulley to get your overall drive ratio. Right now we're spinning the blower 40% faster than the engine speed, and when we put a smaller pulley on top, we're going to be driving it 64% faster than the engine speed. So do a little math, and what's this thing turning, like 10,000 RPM or more? This is the one part of the whole setup that Dulcich doesn't like.
It doesn't match, that shiny chrome. It just doesn't look good against the aluminum low sheen of the rest of the blower.
Wasn't it you that said function before form?
Well, I don't know, but that looks like it belongs on a shopping cart or something.
We're gonna see either big boost or belt slip, or big boost and less power.
I'm hoping for big boost and not belt slip.
Okay. There went the belt. Get out the rubber cement. Let's fix that belt.
Not the WD-40 like last time with Hemi.
This ends up being a problem on all of these superchargers that have a serpentine belt drive.
With a lot of boost.
Yeah.
They're fine at really low boost.
Yeah, but that's not us.
No.
This is the belt tensioner, spring loaded, but I can almost, well, I can completely collapse it, and that's probably why the belt is getting thrown, so we can pull it out a little bit and hose clamp it.
Hey, Steve-O, where's the hose clamps?
I bet we're gonna end up doing the same thing with the Paxton. Oh yeah. Run it! This is our third different attempt at running this thing with a small blower pulley and big boost, and the belt keeps falling off.
Is this gonna be it for Freiburger?
I was gonna ask you the same thing.
I think it is.
Either we're gonna have more good violence or we're gonna make big power. We made 12 pounds of boost right up at the very top, more like 10 in here, but 568 pound-feet of torque and a pretty flat curve. And up here, 602 horsepower, all the way at 6,600 RPM. If you can change an intake manifold and a fan belt, you can install this.
Yeah.
And we didn't touch the carburetor from the naturally aspirated
No, that was
setup.
the cool thing. The carburetor was like 12.8, and you know, it's probably could have been a touch richer with the higher boost level, but you know, we got away with it. But on the 5-pound boost level, that right out of the box, you know, after the NA tuning was fine.
Lower swap?
Lower swap.
All right.
Yeah, this will only take another 6 hours. Well, that was pretty good. We were able to take the carburetor directly off of our naturally aspirated combination, plop it right on top of this blower, and it just plain worked. Now, I really wanted to do that to prove a point, but Holly wanted to make sure that you understand that they sell a supercharger carburetor for this, which I will say is really well calibrated out of the box, but here's the most important thing about it. The supercharger carburetor has a boost referenced power valve. The power valve inside the carburetor adds fuel enrichment under periods of high load, and it does that by looking at low vacuum conditions. The problem is, if I put this carburetor on top of that manifold, I could be at a part throttle situation where I'm seeing vacuum here and maybe half a pound of boost here, or maybe even a pound of boost. And because there's vacuum up here, the power valve is not opening. And so you boost reference the power valve from the side of the carburetor here down underneath the manifold, and it just makes sure that you're perfectly safe on the street. And that's kind of what you need to know about running this little Roots blower. It was simple. Now we're gonna move on to the Paxton supercharger. This is Paxton's 1200 series SL. That means it's self-lubricated. You don't have to plumb oil into the supercharger and then back to your oil pan. It will lubricate itself, which makes it pretty neat. What's a little more complicated about this is that we're going to be blowing boost through the carburetor. Sometimes that can be tricky with these setups, other times it bolts right up and works. Because the boost is going through the carburetor and also through the vent tubes for the float bowls, which are holding the fuel, and the fuel's coming in from the fuel pump, you have to have what's called a boost referenced fuel system, because imagine 7 psi of fuel going into the bowl and 7 psi of boost going into the vent tube. 7 psi working against 7 psi is 0 psi. You would get no fuel flow. So you need a regulator that can reference boost from the hat and step up the fuel flow in direct proportion to the boost.
In English, you want 7 psi more fuel pressure than boost at all times, right?
Exactly.
And if you reference the boost, you just add 7 to it and you'll always have plenty of fuel.
What would I do without you? I think I'd get out my calculator.
Really?
You can be replaced by an iPhone.
Oh man.
This is gonna be our first test with the Paxton supercharger. We tried to make it run with that out-of-the-box Holley Ultra XP carburetor, and it just basically wouldn't run. We're not exactly sure why. It was either too rich or too lean. It was just misfiring, it was struggling. It's like hit or miss on whether a carburetor is gonna work right out of the box with one of these deals or not.
It can be made to work, I'm confident. But we happen to have a carburetor in the cabinet that we already know kind of works well with these blow-through stuff, and so we opted to take the easy road and put the other carburetor on.
So you think this one will work, Steve-O?
Yeah, I'm very confident.
This carburetor is a Holley 850 double pumper, but it's been worked over by a company called CSU. It has annular boosters and a bunch of other trickery to make it work specifically with a blow-through application like this.
Is it gonna save us?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We're good right now.
Okay.
Belt slip.
Yeah. You could really see it wagging on the long side.
Every time.
Yeah.
Instead of having a spring-loaded tensioner like the other blower setup did, this thing just has an idler that rides right against the belt. We gotta tighten it so that it's about a D-string sound right there. And interestingly, this is the out-of-the-box pulley ratio. The other blower, we only ran into trouble once we started to hop the thing up with a pulley that was really way too small for too much boost. This thing's straight from the factory. Here's what just happened. Final run, we didn't have any belt slip, and that junk made 573 pound-feet of torque, which is sort of just stuff, because it made 675 horsepower. What you're looking at here is the Weiand root supercharger in red and then blue, and the Paxton Centrifugal in black. And really, it's kind of the classic trade-off. Do you want low-end power with your roots, or do you want high-end horsepower with your centrifugal? It's as simple as that. Now let's have a look at the torque curves with the same two blowers. Once again, in red and blue, you've got the root supercharger. In black, you've got the centrifugal. Look at that. Wow. Would you ever give up this much power down here if you were talking just a street car application, not a drag car?
Well, I mean, I probably would. I'm more of a top-end, high RPM guy.
Okay, well then you're gonna have to drive your car above 5,000 RPM at wide open all the time to take advantage of that deal.
I drive a four-cylinder back and forth to work. I don't think I need anything up there.
So, so let me run through my conclusions and you can tell me if you agree or not.
I'll get to tell you why you're a chump.
That's right. So let's start with the Weiand root supercharger. I'm gonna say that was way easier to install than this. Okay, I can't go way. It was easier to install than the centrifugal.
I'll give you that.
It was way easier on the tune-up and carburation issue.
Way.
And I think that's gonna be true anytime you've got a blow-through versus a root setup. I am waffling on what actually looks better because I'm getting accustomed to this meaning horsepower and being cool.
Right.
How about you?
I don't know, that big macho blower on top of the engine where it's intended to be with the carburetor on top of that
Right.
wins me over every time.
I don't know if I can go macho with that little baby blower though. That's kind of, that's my hang up. Okay, so we'll call that a draw. How about horsepower?
Well, I mean, that made way more horsepower.
Self-evident, but the Roots blower made so much more torque down low. I think it would be more fun to drive just day to day on the street.
I don't know. I mean, if I had my choice, I would go for the horsepower.
You would?
Yeah.
Well, I know it's hard to turn down as a magazine editor, but
No, I mean, even for my personal car. As a matter of fact, this will probably end up in my new Cougar.
you're gonna put this in my old Cougar?
Well, yeah, it was your old Cougar, but it's mine now.
Oh man.
Yeah, because I want the top end charge of almost 700 horsepower as that thing's revving up to the red line. I really like that.
Both of these setups are basically the same money to buy the kit, but here's another point I'll make against the Centrifugal. You've got to also buy a complete trick carburetor, probably.
Yep.
And you have to buy a boost reference fuel system, which is therefore going to require you to have an electric fuel pump and probably a return line and all that. Whereas the Roots setup, I'm going to argue you could run that off of a mechanical fuel pump.
No question, this is a lot more work.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you that. It may not even be as practical of a choice, but I just like that top end power.
And what's the one complete fail with both these systems?
The belt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get away from that, manufacturers. We're tired of seeing these serpentine belts slip. So I think that's a pretty good wrap. We've given you a lot to think about between these two superchargers. Next time, even more interesting engine stuff on Engine Masters, presented by AMSOIL. The Paxton Centrifugal Supercharger.
What was it called?
No, this takes R134A.
Oh, really? It's not an R12?
No.
I know, it's a big air conditioning compressor. It'll keep it nice and cool in the car. Right?
Yep, milkshake break. It should work now. How's your milkshake?
I didn't get one. Steve's drinking Steve's milkshake, but it's the wrong Steve.
You want a sip?
No.